Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. Jim Woodrick has been showing me around the Vicksburg Campaign, and unfortunately, he has fallen into the Big Black River. Not really. He had to actually head back to his place near Jackson, Mississippi, so I'm finishing out the campaign for us today here along the banks of the Big Black. This is actually a railroad bridge that was built in part to replace the one that Confederates ended up torching in their retreat from Champion Hill back toward the city. Obviously, they're not coming through and putting up a concrete bridge right away, but this is that area. The remains of the original bridge are actually right there that the Confederates had torched. You can see here that the Big Black, not super wide, but deep enough. If you look close, the riverbanks aren't especially high, but they are steep. They drop right off into the river. And then, of course, there's floodplain on either side. So, aside from the steep drop-off, then there's kind of a plateau, and then it kind of gently rises on either side of the river. So it's not an easy bridge or an easy river to hop across. In fact, Sherman later on will put a pontoon bridge through here later on in the Vicksburg Campaign, as he moves back toward Jackson in July to face the threat of Johnston. But the Battle of the Big Black actually doesn't take place on the edge of the river. We're going to hop up and drive over to the battlefield in just a second and show you where it's at. When I say battlefield, I use the term loosely because the battle lasts all of about 10 minutes, pretty quick. And something that as you're driving down the road here on Old Highway 80, you can miss pretty easily. Now, I was on the other side of the river, on the west side of the Big Black. Now I've come across here. The Federals are approaching from this direction, and they're going to end up deploying out across this field. There's a little kind of ravine over on the side there that they're going to get into and allow them to sort of outflank the Confederate position. Now, what happens is Pemberton actually defends the east side of the river, which seems kind of odd because you'd think he'd want to get across the river, fortify, and take advantage of the topography. But the problem is that at Champion Hill, William Loring's division basically marches off the field and marches away from the battlefield, never to return. Pemberton doesn't know that. So as he gets here to the Big Black, he's still missing a quarter of his army. And so what he does is he digs in on this side of the river, right along this tree line here, so that he can guard the river crossing. So when Loring shows up, Loring's got some protection to get across. So Loring doesn't show up. The Federals do. McPherson in the lead, McClernand coming behind him. William Sherman didn't take part in the fighting at Champion Hill. Coming up on a route a little to the north of here, he'll cross the Big Black just north of modern Interstate 20 today. And so he'll eventually get to Vicksburg first, and that's why he leads off the assaults on the 19th of May. But this fight here across this field, as you're driving through here, wouldn't even necessarily know that there's a battlefield here. Big Black River off to my right is really going to be the last gasp for Pemberton before he pulls into Vicksburg and hunkers down and makes Grant come at him. How might things have turned out differently if he hadn't left two divisions in Vicksburg as he marched out to try to confront Grant? Well, with the numbers as they were, as Jim pointed out earlier, Pemberton's not going to make an effective showing with only half of his army. If he'd have come out with his whole army, things might have turned out differently. We'll never know, a great what if. But as it is, Pemberton's got to hunker down into Vicksburg and wait for events to play out. For Emerging Civil War, with thanks to Jim Woodrick, I'm Chris Mackowski. Thanks for being with us.